everybody. We have a new book out this week, and so that's what this week's video is going to be, is the first chapter of K.J. Taylor's debut science fiction novel, City in the Sky. K.J. Taylor has written extensively in fantasy. This is their first novel in the sci-fi genre. So if you would like to purchase this book is available from all major retailers as both a paperback and ebook. And you can go to the Black Cockie Press website, which is linked below, where I think, especially if you're in Australia, we have, I think, possibly the best price for it. So before we keep it, rather than have me ramble on a lot more, let's start with K.J. Taylor's City in the Sky. Chapter 1. What is worrying you today? Feeling sick? Too much work piling up? The cursor flashed green for a few seconds and then started to type, apparently of its own accord. Do you think you have been working too hard, Leesa? I always work too hard, Leesa typed back irritably, if it was possible to type in an irritated kind of way. Do you think you should take some time off to rest? Leesa's mouth quirked. No, if I don't work, I get bored. She paused for yet another coughing fit, and by the time she could focus on the screen again, more text had appeared. More than one line this time. That tended to happen if you didn't answer quickly enough. Maybe you should watch some movies or play some games. There is plenty to keep you entertained while you're not working, Leesa. Leesa's irritation grew. She started trying to explain to the stupid thing that this simply wasn't how her mind worked, but then gave up. What was the point? It had only spat more soothing platitudes at her. You are a useless piece of shit, she typed, then shut the program off before it could start making passive-aggressive suggestions about learning to control her temper. The virus had left a heavy hand of exhaustion crushing her brain, but she thrust it aside and blinked a few times to try and compensate for the sore eyes before turning her attention to her inbox. An endless list of jobs, all demanding her attention. She picked an easy one and stomped over to the workbench which dominated the adjoining room. It was covered in carefully arranged tools and electrical components, and had a handy view of the bed in the next room and the big screen above it. She flipped on the 24-hour news channel, and while that chattered away in the background, she opened up a box, extracted the burned-out circuit inside, and reread the work brief. By the sound of it, some idiot had overloaded the system so badly it had fried about $1,000 worth of wiring. See, this is how it works, she told the TV. I make it, you break it, I fix it. If anyone bothered to read a goddamn user's manual once in a while, I'd be out of a job, actually, but that's not the point. Leesa went on grumbling while she expertly removed the damaged components and tossed them into the disposal unit. Fortunately, she had all the bits she needed to replace them, and she set about doing just that. As always, she enjoyed the satisfying click of each piece settling into its proper place. There was something profoundly satisfying in general about taking something broken and making it work again. It was the reason she enjoyed her job so much. That and knowing she was good at it, and seeing the impressed and grateful messages and reviews she got from her clients. 10 out of 10 would break it again. Maybe she should change her business name to 10 out of 10 would break it again. It was catchy. What do you think? She asked the TV. Scientists are warning that the object may be on a collision course with Earth, and tonight on CBN Late Line, controversial chat show host Alexander Lane continued to support his theory that loner syndrome had been linked to childhood exposure to certain antiviral medications, the TV obligingly replied. His new book, Damaged by Doctors, is currently at the top of the bestseller list. Leesa's teeth slammed together. Oh, fuck off, she yelled, and hurled a screwdriver at the TV. It connected and the glass cracked. A few seconds later, the crack started to seal over, and in less than a minute it was gone altogether. "If you show me that guy's face again, you are in big trouble, TV," Leesa warned it. Fortunately, the news report moved on to something else, and Leesa went back to work, still muttering to herself. Still, she reflected, it was probably just as well she only had the TV to take her temper out on. At least the TV couldn't fight back. She finished repairing the circuit board and neatly packed it away in a fresh box with some biodegradable padding and an itemised invoice which she printed off the second, much smaller computer bolted to the workbench. Humming, she sealed the box and shunted it aside into her outgoing mail. It looked something like an old-fashioned dumbwaiter, though with a small digital screen attached, and the moment she punched in the customer's name and address, the box went zipping off up a vacuum tube and away. Easy peasy. Leesa paused to blow her nose, then got to work on the next job. But a moment later she was interrupted by a loud buzzing from behind her. She started violently and turned to look, and her stomach did a backflip. There was a screen over the door which was recessed into the wall at the back of her workshop, and it showed an image of what was very clearly a man standing on her doorstep beside a large box. Leesa gripped the edge of the bench. Shit! She kept still, hoping he'd go away, but the intruder only glanced upward and then pressed the buzzer again. Leesa's heart was pounding so hard she thought she might vomit, and her head span. Even so, she forced herself to confront the fact that the intruder was not going away. Just deal with it, she told herself. Get it over with. She took a few deep breaths and finally let go of the bench. Then, moving very carefully, she went over to the door and pressed the intercom. If it's a delivery, just leave it on the doorstep. The man leaned towards the speaker on the other side. Could you open up? Please, it's important. Did you read my website? Leesa snapped. It specifically says no face-to-face meetings and no couriers, robots only. Yeah, I know, but this is something a bit different. Could you please open the door? I can't. I can pay you. Look, I'll pay you a lot, okay? The man fidgeted as he spoke. Leesa could see the sweat on his face. This is really important. Leesa chewed on her lip. Despite herself, she was curious now, and the mention of money had got her attention. Life in Sky City wasn't cheap. A treacherous inner voice whispered about new tools and other luxuries she could buy. All right, she said at last. She silently promised herself a nice handful of tranquilizers once this was over and slapped the open door button. The door slid open, releasing a blast of stale air, and she cringed at the light from the corridor outside. The moment the door was open, the man hoisted his box on its small portable winch and hauled it inside, pushing past Leesa in the process. The contact made her flinch and shy away, as if he had struck her, but she managed to pull herself together and breathe slowly while he closed the door behind him. The moment it had slid shut, he turned to her and said, "Thanks so much. I know this is against policy and stuff, but it's really urgent. No one else would take it." Leesa stood rigid and focused on the box, forcing herself not to look at the stranger's face. "What is it?" she asked tersely. The man, who was in his 30s and had a damp and furtive look about him, slapped the box. "It's my robot," he said. She? Leesa repeated sharply. "It." The man corrected hastily. "It's malfunctioning. I got it from the manufacturer last week and it doesn't work." "Send it back to the company then," said Leesa. "It's got a warranty, hasn't it?" "They don't accept returns." "Sounds like you got ripped off then, mate," said Leesa, unmoved. The man took a deep breath. "Look, the thing is, it's kind of legally a bit dodgy." "Got it on the black market, did you?" said Leesa. "Yeah." The man scratched his ear. He was avoiding her eye, which wasn't a problem since she was avoiding his entire face. "Look, I asked around and everyone said you were the best option. You can fix anything and you don't talk to anyone. So look, it's okay if you're not comfortable, but if I can't get the robot fixed, I'm out $200,000 and I'm not getting that money back." Leesa continued to breathe slowly, forcing herself to remain outwardly calm. "So you want me to fix it under the table?" If that's okay, I'll pay you $10,000, cash. Lisa's interest immediately piqued. Can you tell me what's wrong with it? Well, the ad said it's supposed to come with a set of pre-programmed actions and dialogues, but none of them work, said the man, sounding relieved. It just stands there doing nothing, like it's catatonic or something. I checked the manual and tried doing the factory reboot, but it just stayed the same. Okay, what is this robot supposed to do? Said Leesa. It's, a companion. Leesa risked a quick look at the man and saw he was sweating. His eyes were very firmly fixed on his shoes, and he'd gone red. One of those robots for people with dementia, you mean? She said, deliberately playing stupid. It's for people who are lonely, he answered, going redder than ever. Look, some of us just got a shitty hand in life, okay? He added defiantly. We do what we have to just to make life less of a hellhole. Leesa immediately felt like a jerk. Okay, I get it, she said shortly. I'll take a look and see what I can do. Is your name and address on the box? Yeah, it's Paul Wessler, and you don't have to tell anyone about this, understand? Leesa laughed in a sharp, humourless kind of way. Who would I tell? I'll be in touch as soon as I have something to tell you. Great. Paul reached into his coat and pulled out a wad of cash, which he offered her. When she didn't take it, he awkwardly put it on top of the box instead. Here's half your pay. I'll give you the rest if you can fix her. Right. Leesa retreated towards the bench. She felt hot all over, and a strange feeling of disconnection had come over her. Shit, she hadn't felt like this in years. It was like being lobotomized, and she hated it. Mercifully, Paul was just as eager for him to be gone as she was. He opened the door and slipped out with a muttered thanks and disappeared. The instant she was alone, Leesa slapped the door lock button. She stood leaning against the panel for a long moment, breathing hard, and a sob escaped her. Hating herself, she staggered over to the bench, and leaned on it with both hands, staring vacantly at the pitted plastic. Her breath came in gasps. She almost vomited. The TV continued to blather on, oblivious. Do you suffer from loner syndrome? There's still hope with our new patented electronic brain stimulation program. Still retching, Leesa walked unsteadily into the bedroom. The world warped around her, but she made it into the bathroom, where she fumbled a drawer open and snatched out a packet of tranquilizer pills. She tossed back half a dozen, not caring a damn about the instructions on the packet. She felt better the moment they went down, though they'd had no chance to go into effect yet, and slumped down on the bed, where she lay staring at the ceiling and waited to feel normal. More than anything else, she hated herself in that moment. Hated herself for being so weak and abnormal. Other people could handle something as stupid, as simple as a face-to-face conversation with a human being just fine, but not her. For whatever reason, through some quirk of genetics, she couldn't. I am a strong, independent person, she told herself. I am smart and talented. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I am not abnormal, just different. Just different. It didn't make her feel the slightest bit better. I hate everything, she told the ceiling. The ceiling offered no comment. After a while, the tranquilizers went into effect and the tension faded out of her chest. She took several long, deep breaths, and bit by bit she managed to regain her equilibrium. She got up, feeling a bit woozy, and went to take a look at her new job. Now that the panic attack had faded, she was genuinely curious to see the thing. She had repaired hundreds of robots over the years, but this was something new to her. Of course, it was only natural that there were robots created for sexual purposes, and that was just how people worked. The moment something new was invented, someone would start thinking up ways to masturbate with it. Sex bots, however, was something a bit different and far more morally and legally dubious. In some places you could buy them legally, but they were always sold under the guise of being for some other purpose. Other than that, there was the black market, but that came with few guarantees, which was putting it mildly. If a black marketeer ripped you off with a defective product, you couldn't exactly go back and complain. Either way, most people objected to the things, and you could potentially lose your job if your boss found out you had one. Having sex with a robot made it too human. Leesa opened the clasps on the front side of the box and swung the lid open. A teenage girl stared back at her. Leesa started and swore. She nearly slammed the box shut again, but managed to contain herself and look again. The girl continued to stare at her, vacant-eyed, and though she told herself it was just a robot, some part of her said otherwise, loudly. Normal robots did not have heads or anything resembling eyes, and they sure as hell didn't have skin. But this one did. It, looked almost exactly like a real teenage girl, young enough to be her own daughter. Arms, legs, head, skin, glossy brown hair, and eyes. Green eyes, just a little bit too big and shiny to be natural, and too empty to be alive. They were dead eyes, as clear and glassy as polished crystal. But that wasn't the most uncomfortable part. She was naked. Whoever had made her had been very meticulous about making her nudity look as real as possible, from the soft pink nipples to the fine downy pubic hair. Leesa gripped the box lid more tightly than she needed to. That fucking pervert. The robot did not respond in any way. Leesa went on staring at the thing, still not quite able to grasp what she was seeing. The idea of some guy fucking a robot woman who couldn't say no was distasteful enough. That someone had seen fit to make one that looked so obviously underage and someone had been willing to pay for it was even worse. I hate people, she said to nobody. I hate people. The robot continued to stare unblinking. To her surprise, Leesa found herself feeling sorry for it. It hadn't asked to be made. I guess I'd better take a look at you, eh? She said. Step forward, robot. The robot did not respond. Leesa tried the command a couple more times, but got nothing. Either the robot was switched off, or it was just as non-functional as its owner had suggested. Leesa reached out and tentatively took it by the arm. She recoiled and hissed between her teeth. The skin was warm. Shit. Leesa prodded the robot on the chest. The skin and flesh was soft and yielding, exactly like the real thing, and it felt warm and alive and slightly sticky. She grimaced, but it occurred to her just then that this was the closest she had come to voluntarily touching another human being for about as long as she could remember, and it did not make her feel anxious, dizzy, or panicky. Faintly disgusted, yes, but not afraid. Why should I be afraid of you? She said to that blankly innocent face. You're a robot. Robots don't scare me. People do. Feeling slightly invigorated by the realization, she took hold of the robot's arm again and gave it a gentle pull. Now the robot moved. It took several steps forward, following her tugging. The movement was so natural it took Leesa's breath away. And rather than make those amusing buzzing clicking noises like a robot out of an old science fiction movie, the only sound it made was the faint slap of bare feet on concrete. Leesa carefully guided the robot over to the special platform she used for robot repairs, which looked something like a metal stool crossed with a car jack. She got it to sit down there and raise the platform so its upper back was at eye height. The back of the robot was just as realistic as the front, from the soft bumps of the artificial spine to the pert round buttocks. The only unrealistic part, in all honesty, was the utter lack of a single blemish, scar or pimple. What you are is perfection, Leesa told the robot. She went to fetch her tools, hesitated, then went to the computer instead. This was going to take some research. Everything a guy like that can't stand in a real woman left out. She opened up the robotics encyclopedia, which she and thousands of other engineers contributed to. Flawless good looks, big eyes, no moles or stretch marks, you can't get old or fat. She tapped through several entries until she found what she was after, an entry of robots on this type, complete with schematics. And most of all, she went on while she scanned the charts, you can't say no to anything. She fell silent while she read over the information and studied the schematics more closely. It didn't take long to absorb the information, and finally swiveled her chair around to look at the motionless robot again. "Real women are just too complicated, huh?" she said to it. "We argue, we complain, we refuse." She got up and approached the thing. "Why would a man like that want a real woman when he's got you?" The robot, of course, didn't answer. Leesa took a moment to blow her nose again, then picked out the tools she would need. She pulled the robot's hair aside to expose the back of the neck, and sure enough, she found a tiny barcode. It looked like a tattoo, but when she pressed it, the skin loosened and fell away, exposing the spine beneath. It might almost have been less disturbing if there had been red flesh and blood underneath, but there was nothing, only metal and rubber. Leesa peeled more of the skin back, and the back of the scalp opened up to expose a metal skull with a hatch set into it. She unscrewed that and opened it. Inside was a surprisingly small computer unit, the robot's brain essentially. Leesa carefully extracted it with a pair of forceps and carried it over to the bench. She had expected the robot to shut down when she removed its brain, but it didn't. In fact, it didn't react at all. The brain must not be very important. "No surprises there," she muttered as she got to work. "Women with brains are scary." The CPU, as it turned out, was a complete and utter disaster area. In fact, calling it a CPU to begin with was an insult to CPUs everywhere. The genius who had engineered and built the body clearly hadn't had a hand in this particular component. It was a mess of wires and clips and other bits and pieces haphazardly jammed together like some sort of attempt at modern art. Who the fuck put this together? A chimpanzee? Leesa extracted a loose piece of metal and tossed it aside. "I could make something better than this in my sleep. In fact, I probably have. I sleepwalk." She spent some time sorting through the mess and shaking her head in despair. Nope, it was a train wreck, completely unsalvageable. She very much suspected that and this was putting it kindly, engineer had done this on purpose to save money. A proper CPU was expensive, so why not toss in something vaguely resembling one to the layperson and call it a day? Leesa looked speculatively at the robot, which was still sitting there with its skull open. "You got ripped off, kiddo. This isn't a brain. It's something out of a trash compactor." To emphasize the point, she tossed the CPU into the disposal unit, where it was swiftly ground into a fine powder. In spite of everything, a fierce excitement rose in her chest, and she grinned wickedly and rubbed her hands together. "Time to build you a real brain, robot." That was chapter 1 of City in the Sky. To continue the adventures of Leesa and the robot, you can buy City in the Sky from the Black Cockie Press website. And you will see another video next week. Bye bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.